Salut YouTube! Today I have got a special guest with me, my lovely friend Daniel from Colombia.
Hello!
We're coming at you today with an interesting video which is 10 tips for working in France with French colleagues. We've got a lot of industry experience, let's say, between us. I've done videos on culture shocks in the workplace and stuff, but in this video it's really about like 10 practical tips that we can give you that will make working with French colleagues a lot easier.
So the first thing would be hierarchy, a huge concept here in France, something we need to pay attention to. So the first thing is be careful about vous versus tu here in France. This is very important. The second thing I would say, don't get too familiar with people too quickly. Just give them some time.
Like if you see a senior manager in the hallway, you're definitely going to be like, hey Mark, how was your weekend? How are the kids? Like, no. Like,
never speak about personal matters, at least not at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, before getting connected or introduced with other people, just ask your manager first to have this authorization.
Yeah, definitely. It's like when you're sending an email in France, they may not respond to you if they don't know who you are and you don't have someone with more power and hierarchy and contact. Just respect that there's hierarchy and keep the distance accordingly.
So the second one, which has been a struggle and is a struggle to me, is about speaking during meetings. Basically, the rule is that if you don't speak during meetings, you don't exist.
With the French love of discussion and debate and meetings and stuff, like if you don't raise your voice, if you don't have an opinion, if you don't put your idea out on the table, you might as well not even be in the meeting.
I remember one of the first managers I had here in France that said once, well, if you don't speak, if you don't ask questions during a meeting, then you were not part of this meeting.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind.
You weren't even there. So the third thing is definitely respect the line between personal life and professional life. You have to keep the conversation very factual. Maybe you talk about how you get to work, or you talk about the weather or general politics or current events, but you definitely just don't go in there and ask your boss or your colleagues are you married, do you have children, this kind of thing, because it can be seen as very personal and you've got to respect that.
And also, which is really surprising here in France, that you never invite colleagues to your home.
True.
At least at the beginning.
In the last 4 years, I can't even remember how many times I've been to actually invited around to a colleague's house. Maybe twice. And max.
I think you were lucky.
Yeah.
Well, in my case. And I have been here longer than you.
Yeah, the point here is basically don't take offense if people don't seem interested in your personal life, and don't maybe ask them too many questions, and don't expect, for your colleagues to come around to your house and for the two worlds to overlap like they may do in your culture, because here it's not really the done thing and it's quite exceptional.
So building relationships here in France may take some time, so please take advantage of every single free minute you have to approach the people and to build a relationship with them. So typically here in France we have the particularities, which is a break where people go outside and smoke. So if you're a smoker, please do that and enjoy this time, because this is the time to get to know other people. At the same time, we have the pause déjeuner, which is the lunch break, and also post café, coffee break. So these are good opportunities to connect to people, and this is actually work time.
Yeah, exactly. Every minute that you invest into a colleague will make your life easier in the future, because you'll be able to maybe ask them to collaborate with you on something or to help you with something at work. And here, if you don't know someone, it can be really hard to get them to collaborate with you, sacrifice some of their time to help you out on something. But if they know you and you've got a strong relationship with them, then it will be so much easier.
You really need to earn their trust.
So the next point is on the concept of ambiguity and things not being clear and just having to deal with it. And the classic experience of this is the French meeting.
Well, things are never clear here.
And you're at the end of the meeting and you're like, what just happened? Decisions seem unclear, processes seem unclear.
And you can easily feel very lost in what are we actually talking about.
It seems like you go to a meeting to talk about A, and you go on such a big tangent, you end up speaking about Z.
It's like this feeling of frustration after every single meeting. you feel like, what did we actually decide? What do we have to do?
What was
It's
the point of that meeting? And then even in processes, I know that a lot of my kind of American expats that come to work in France, it drives them crazy because things are disorganized. They're like, where's the policy, where's the process? And we're like, well, we don't really have one.
It's like, prepare to defend. This is a key one. Whenever you have a project to present or people to convince, just make sure you have prepared all the answers to any objections you may have, because then there will be too many.
It's straight into the negative feedback.
Yeah.
Where did you get that number from? What made you say that? I'm not sure about that. And then they'll start discussing it and debating it. And you're like, guys, I've got 10 minutes to present.
Yes.
You've got to be prepared to have like your answers quick and snappy, because they're gonna they'll challenge you on different points, and if you can answer them short, sharp, then you can keep moving on. And you've also got to kind of, it's hard to say, but like harden up, because if you're sensitive and if you're someone that takes things really personally, it will be hard because there is such a focus on like challenging you. I just feel like you always have to fight for your idea and your project.
But if we look at things positively, then we realize that you can get skills, especially in negotiation and also in convincing people, and how to manage your influence to get things done and to move ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
You should also know that here in France, you need to seek for consensus, especially when developing a new idea or implementing a new project. So, meaning that you will need the approval by every single person.
By everyone. If you haven't spoken to 100 people about it, don't even try to launch it. Get their validation, his validation, her validation, before you can barely start actually.
Don't think that you can do everything by your own, because that won't work. You need the support and also, as I say, the approval from your stakeholders, or managing your stakeholders when implementing a project is key, otherwise you won't succeed.
Exactly. It comes back to that relationship stuff we were talking about before, like your stakeholders, your relationship, your network. Such a huge skill in France. You have to let go of the objectivity. What I mean by that, you have to let go of like strict KPIs, objectives, measurable outputs. Like, don't get me wrong, we set objectives in my workplace, but it's not so black and white.
And personally, I think that you are never good enough here, so you can never be 100%. It's not a matter only of corporate culture, but also when you look in the school system, the scoring system at school, you can never be 20 out of 20, because that doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. It's still a measure, it's still an indicator, but no one is 20. They will always find a reason, and a subjective reason.
Because that's the way that they've grown up in their education system, to do better and better and better. I've got quite a few expat friends and colleagues who said like, I've lost a lot of confidence working over here, you know, because I kind of feel like my flaws are revealed and my strengths aren't really celebrated. And you've just got to kind of realize that it's just a different mindset. So you've got to do some work on yourself to be sure of yourself and what your strengths are, because you know your flaws will be exposed. So don't get too upset in the workplace when the same kind of rules apply. I don't hate you, you're not doing a bad job. It's just a way of measuring performance. Another point that I wanted to kind of bring up as well is just make sure you adapt to the office hours, because I know in some countries, like in New Zealand for example, you can kind of adapt to your own schedule. Like what my brother does is, because he's got 2 young girls, he gets into work super early, eats lunch at his desk in 20 minutes and then goes home. You can't really do stuff like that here. It would be quite poorly seen, I think. You have to be present.
I agree with you, and especially speaking about home office, is something which is not really developed in some companies. That's for a country like France, which is at the same level of other European countries or Anglo-Saxon countries, is not the case in all the companies. So some big groups still do not have any home office policy well developed.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's something you need to be very careful, and like anywhere in the world, I think not exclusively in France, is observing the way people behave before proceeding. Especially when saying good morning every time you get into the office. I know that in some companies in France, people do the double kiss on each cheek. In one of my former company, it was really such a struggle every morning to have to kiss everyone in the floor before starting work.
Yeah.
And then
it takes so much time, right? because France is such a culture where a lot of things go unsaid, but there's lots of little social rules. It's a perfect example. Like, observe the rituals that happen. Do people kiss each other on the cheek every morning before they start working? Do you say bonjour to everyone in the office? You know, like, and usually yes. Like, yeah, how do they say good morning? When do they take a coffee? Go with them to take the coffee. You know, when do they have lunch break? How long do they take? Like, and really adapt yourself to that way of life, because if you stand out, you can be perceived as not wanting to try to integrate yourself. We've got a bonus tip for you, because we haven't covered that yet. Speak French. If you don't speak French, like at the coffee breaks and lunchtime, and you try to speak a little bit in meetings, you can really be perceived as this typical like foreigner that's not trying to adapt. Yes, we're in international environments, and yes, you can find amazing jobs in English and everything, but honestly, like, it's social suicide, I think, if you don't try to learn the language. It's kind of offensive almost.
It's just a matter of principle to speak to them in their own language and communicate with them the language they use in their own country.
Yeah.
Cool. So I hope you guys found this video useful, especially expats or people that have projects or plans to come to France for work.
Yeah, I hope you guys liked it, and if you have any other questions whatsoever, ask us down in the comments section below. We will be checking and we'll be responding to all of your questions. So feel free to do that, and if not, until the next video, see you next time. A bientôt!
Bye bye, a bientôt!
Bye!